Hey guys, welcome back to Purpose People podcast. I've got to say that quite slowly, it's a bit of a mouthful. Today we've got Mr. Darrell Irwin on the sofa for a change, and he is going to be talking about one of his other businesses, which some of you may know. As well as running Purpose People, Darrell actually runs a marketing and branding agency called Creation. So today we're going to be talking about branding and his journey through there. Hey Darrell.
Hey Nath,
how's it going?
Yeah, good. Good to talk a little bit about brand for a change, rather than interviewing and just relaxing and talking about what we do and what we believe.
Yeah.
As a business.
So you've I think you've told your story about how you got into branding and marketing, but maybe just give us a little kind of context of how you got into this whole industry and what your journey was briefly then.
Yeah, I was at school, and I realised I wasn't particularly academic, and I think it was, although I enjoyed art, there was a guy that I worked with at school and stuff, and his name was Brian Norse. If you're listening, he was the best artist in the school ever.
Yeah,
and I recognised that he was amazing in what he did. Weirdly enough, he was colorblind, so his artwork was always like really strange colors, but it was amazing.
How does that work?
I don't know, but I think it was just always that thing. His colors were they almost, best way I can describe it is like, you remember a 48K Spectrum?
Yeah,
and had a very limited color palette.
Yeah.
That's pretty much what always worked. It was those garish colors, but it somehow worked. But he was a legend, and very, very good artist. And I realised that his route potentially would have been going down the route of working in comics and stuff like that. And ultimately now he's a web designer. He's got his own company doing that. But I kind of thought, well, I don't know if I'm going to be a comic drawer, and I don't think I'm going to be like, putting artworks in British Museum and all that sort of stuff, or join the hip art crowd in London. And I thought, well, there's got to be another way you can employ your talents. And it was a CDT teacher called Mr. Ellis. And Mr. Ellis drew, he was like technical drawing. So he drew a motorbike as 3D. I remember the first day he drew a 3D cube, and I was thinking, wow, it's like taking a 2D image and it's brought it to life. And that fascinated me. And I was like, well, this is what I want to do in life. And he had introduced me to graphic design. He said, oh, there's a career you could do in graphic design. And long story short, me and Mr. Ellis, we got on well, and he was inspiring quite a lot of the class. And eventually, he decided to emigrate and go to Wellington. And it was, one of the things was like, make sure you follow it up and pursue that career. And and that's why I went to college, learned it, and it was in design and communication. And I realised there was this whole world where you could take your drawing skills and abilities. And I would say I was more conceptual. And as a result of that, I realised that there was a bit of a dovetail between what was in my head, what you could do, and begin to communicate in a way. And I had various different jobs, but the one where I definitely stepped in, so I went from graphic design to being an art director, which is very conceptually driven. I mean, that's when I thought, that is me. That's what I want to do. Art directing, working with multiple people to produce a vision. And I think that journey took a long while to get to, but it was for me, it was more than just creating art, so to speak. It was like, how do you make that work? And I think when it was fused with communication and design, that I realized you could use art or photography or, even websites. I don't think they were out back then. It was all very new, but it was just a way of communicating a subject and people buying into it and realizing you could have an impact with it. That's really got my curiosity.
So then it seems like a natural progression to you actually starting your own agency then. And building that team. And this was the beginning of Creation, the foundations of what is Creation today, the company with,
Yeah, I mean, obviously we've touched on a previous podcast, so listen to them. But essentially the journey was that I was definitely using my skills, talents and abilities to help other companies win in life. And we did. We won awards and that sort of stuff. But I think inherently, deep down in me, I wasn't doing that on purpose. I was doing it really for myself. And, essentially it led me to being offered the opportunity to run an agency of 4 other people. And I walked from it because the girl that I was seeing at the time questioned or asked me the question, is this the type of life that you want to live? And there's a whole load of gaps. But the reality was I recognized my value set was completely wrong.
Yeah.
And once I'd fixed the value set, then I began to look at my skills, talent, and abilities very differently. And that led me to say, well, how do I do this for more purposeful companies? And yeah, you could argue those were the embryonic ideas that was inherently laying within, and I didn't know how to express it. And then I started to realize, yeah, there are businesses out there that want to do good. There's businesses that want to create impact. Naturally, back then it was probably charities.
Yeah.
You know, but I think there are a lot of businesses now, you know, if they're selling products, they want to make an impact. So
it's been a big change, hasn't it?
Big sea change since COVID anyway.
Yeah. Brilliant. So, so Creation Today, what the branding agency kind of does today, how does it compare to how it was 25 years ago when you first started?
I think the main thing is storytelling. Storytelling was almost like, well, you know, you're not getting straight to the point. So I think advertising was a lot more direct, I would say 25 years ago. It's like, buy this, buy one, get one free. It's very value driven, as in, how do I get as much as I can for my money?
Much more kind of boomer kind of generation.
Yeah, it was just like, just tell me what it is. Tell me how much money I've got to spend. You know, what's the ROI? It was very much that.
Yeah.
And I think the essence of storytelling had got lost. Now, there's a TV show called Mad Men, for example, where they started to bring in some more storytelling to the narrative in terms of advertising and stuff. And I think when I looked at ads many, many years ago as a kid, the ones that told a bit of a story and a bit of imagination always seemed to pique my interest, which was indicative to where I would end up. And I think the greatest advertising actually told stories. And in the art of people maybe not understanding marketing, it was almost like you got sales and you got marketing, and it's always about the sale, and not realize that marketing actually tees you up to make the sale. And I think storytelling is the biggest change I've seen, that there is more essence, there is more drive, there is more, people almost expect a story to be told before they buy into a brand now. Whereas I think before it was what you see is what you get. I don't think that's enough now.
So I think we could quite easily say that in the marketplace today is very, very saturated. Branding is very saturated. Kind of you're bombarded wherever you go. Especially online. So how do you be cutting edge? How do you differ from everything else that's out there? How, you know, what can you do? You know, what does Creation do, which kind of just sets it apart?
I mean, there's a way of telling stories, and I mean, everybody focuses on the product. So my product is great but the reality is, there's only a camera takes a picture. You know, a lawyer or a solicitor helps you deal with the legals of a certain situation or a circumstance. The companies that win more is they don't major on the different services that they have. So there's, like, you go to a solicitor, you want heads of terms. Another solicitor could do heads of terms. But what makes them different? And so the key thing really is, you want to discover your uniqueness in the marketplace. It's not necessarily the product. It can be, but it's very rare. It's more the story behind the product. And that's where people get it wrong. So they get intimidated because they go, well, my product's not unique enough. No, but your story is.
Okay.
So where you've come, like, for instance, if you're an entrepreneur or a business owner that started, your journey to get to that point is different from somebody else's. So there was this great, maybe 5 years ago, I'd say, there's this big emergence of Simon Sinek's talk about finding your why. And a lot of businesses then began to articulate why they do something, because it gave them the differential in the marketplace. Now, Apple were very good at telling their why and telling their story. You know, Steve Jobs was as much a personality as the product, because you would find out about his passion about art and that sort of stuff. And Zen, and so he was kind of the brand for Apple was an extension of himself, but he was just as interested as the products themselves. And I think that's where businesses then begin to sort of like cotton onto that and go, well, if I can articulate why I'm here, then of course I'm going to be more memorable. But the best way to tell your why is to tell a story. And that's why I think there's been this shift now, is that yes, it's a given that people want to tell their why, but storytelling is absolutely the number one thing that makes you unique. So my story is different from your story, is different from Ryan's story, and whoever else is in our business.
Yeah,
we've all got a different story to how we got there, and even in the business, we've got different stories that we tell, different clients that we interact with, different projects that we work on, and that's what makes you unique. And I think that's what we've seen in the marketplace, is this emergence of storytelling, and that creates authenticity, and it creates being open, it becomes honesty, and all of a sudden your identity begins to form because you're telling your story. And I mean, that's the big shift, massive shift. So good technology companies get it wrong, where they just focus on technology. Yeah, this technology is going to change the world. Was it really? And we're looking at like ChatGPT. Everyone's talking about it, but you need to tell a story behind why that's a good thing or not. Yeah, I think it's a fantastic research tool, and I think also it's how search should be now. So I think when it come out, it really, how do I put it? People started using it. You type in, it's an AI tool, basically, if people don't know. It's called ChatGPT. It's built on OpenAI by Microsoft. You can say, write me a blog on X, and press a button, it writes you a blog. Now, it's readable, but for me, it's not passable because it's not authentic. It's like a robot talking back. Yeah. It reads well, but you can tell it just doesn't have the heart and the soul behind it. But you can use it as a research tool. So you can say, what are the top 10 top trends of X? Now, it only goes up to 2021, but it can give you a decent idea. And that for me is where Google could win if they flip the model and use that, because OpenAI uses Google as a source. They could then, Google could say, no, you're not using us, because they have the most data in the world, and just do their own and make it even better. But I think that's where search would win. But to double down on the technology, you lose a lot of people. But if you could tell someone the story of what you can do with that technology and how it can benefit and how it can help make people become better writers, for instance, now you're going to engage more people. Okay. So at the moment, a lot of people a lot of the geeks like myself in certain areas are checking it out because it's, wow, look at this technology, this is AI, this is what could happen. But the skeptical are like, well, what about Skynet and Terminator? It's the emergence of that. But what would make people buy into it, because ultimately I'm sure they're going to charge for it. Sure. Is to tell the story of why it's a good thing. Yes. And that's why it will then get massive adoption. And the more data it feeds, the better it gets, so to speak. So it's an interesting thing. It's that even in tech, because tech's quite disruptive and emergent, people think that's enough. It's not. The storytelling is the thing that gets me to use tech. Okay. So if a person approaches you and they don't feel that they have much of a story, they hear these amazing stories of these companies online, how they came about, how the product came about, the difficulties, the hardships, and they don't think, well, my product's a little bit mundane, my company's a little bit mundane, I kind of came up with it in the shower, and could you help them discover the kind of the story behind that? Is that what you can help them with? Yeah, because I think, what would be the process then? So how would there's two styles of companies. There's the existing company and there's the brand new company. Now, the brand new company is often born out the heart of someone that says, stuff this, I'm going to do it myself. I can do a better job. So there's a motive already that they believe they can have more impact. So it would be to tell the story of how they got to that point where they decided that I'm going to make more impact, and then begin to pitch the vision of the future of, this is what we're starting and this is where we end up going. So we're starting, which is our why, our mission, and the vision is where we want to end up going, and we want to take as many of people with us on that journey as possible. And this is where you would start with a client, potential client. You would take them on this journey. Yeah, we'd take them on this journey through what we call is the Purpose Playbook. Yes. Yeah. So we've covered it before, but it's 4 areas of belief, belong, best, and beyond. Yeah. The belief part is the mission, vision, and values, articulation of that. The belong part is understanding the audience, because everyone wants a tribe to thrive. Yeah. The best part is what makes you unique in the marketplace in terms of the value proposition. But on top of that, it's helping other people communicate it rather than you communicating it. Yeah. So it's like testimonies and stories. And that's where we bring in the thing like the Hollywood story. And the last one is essentially beyond, which is what legacy you're going to leave. Yeah. So we would help people walk through that journey, tell that story. So whether they're a startup or an established company, that will help. Now, with an established company, they've done exactly what the startup's done, but they've been running 3 to 5 years. They're bogged down with maybe debt, employees, offices, HR, finance, and they've forgotten why they started off in the first place.
Sure.
So with those companies, we'd still take them through the same process, but the emphasis is bringing them back to alignment. And you often find, or certainly we found, is that they might have had a vision with no mission, or a mission with no vision. So one or the other. They've probably got some values that are at the bottom of a filing cabinet. And often you find that they're leading by circumstance rather than conviction. So conviction was enough to get them started.
Yeah.
And now they're making decisions based on circumstance. So what we do is bring them back to the why, bring them back to belief in what they originally set out to do. And now they start living with conviction, and the circumstances begin to reshape.
Yeah.
So they might have to make some decisions to go back in order to go forward, but they've now got the conviction that's what they need to do, and are happy to do that, because ultimately if they don't, then the mission is hindered. So one is about harnessing the power and the enthusiasm and the passion of launching out, and the other one is bringing alignment to remind them of why they started in the first place, that they can still get there. Yeah. So that's kind of the two scenarios that we would take people through in terms of storytelling.
Okay. What's the kind of most effective way to get the message out now then? What would you say? Is there a number of different ways?
Yeah, again, if you understand, so one of the pillars is the belong piece. And so the belong piece is working out where your audience actually live. So you might have a product where a lot of your audience or your demographic just hangs out on TikTok. Now, TikTok for most people is lots of noise, people dancing, that sort of stuff. But the journey there is that's where that audience live, and how do you engage with them? Now, it's definitely a younger market that hang out on there. Yeah. There is definitely an older market trying to hang out there, but it's almost as cringeworthy as me telling a joke to my daughter. So, it's a dad joke. Yeah. It's almost like dad jokes times 10 on TikTok, where you see someone my age trying to do a stupid dance to engage a crowd. Yeah. And I'm thinking, no, you're clearly not comfortable, number one. Yeah. Number two, your audience think you look terrible. Yeah. Maybe do it a different way. Yeah. So for instance, with me, we use TikTok, but you won't catch me dancing or even dad dancing. Yeah. We're showing clips from the podcast, for example, to create engagement. So people use social media to learn from. I was talking the other day with someone that video now, especially short videos, is becoming the frequently asked questions. So the video is the new FAQ. Yeah. So the reason why when people are looking for information, they go and seek it maybe on Facebook Watch or Instagram Reels or Facebook Reels or even TikTok, is short sound bites of information that you can digest. And obviously the algorithms, when you say you're looking at Tony Robbins, you probably see Gary Vaynerchuk come up. Yeah. And who knows, one day we'll come up.
Sure.
The idea is that when you're in that frame of mind or mentality where you're there to learn certain things, then it doesn't matter. It's immaterial of how old that person is. I'm in that frame of mind to be educated. That makes the most sense. Yeah. But seeing Tony Robbins' dad dancing, I'm going to switch off. Yeah? So it's understanding where your audience live first and foremost, and then using the media that works best. But, if you've got a lot of, if your client needs a lot of information, and you realize that they're readers, then you need to write blogs. Simple as that. Okay, so you address your audience with lots of text because they like to read, they like to research and digest. Yeah. Whereas a younger person will do the same amount of research, but they like to watch. Okay. So it's just, again, it's understanding your audience and where they spend most of their time. And it's been interesting doing the YouTube and looking at the demographics here. We've got an audience that's 25, I think, to 34. Yeah. Which is our biggest audience. And then we've got the next one up is the 35 to 45, I think it is, or 44, I think it is. Yeah. So we've realized that we're a slightly younger crowd than who I am, but I do have a very young outlook on life because my team's young. Yes. That makes sense? I'm not saying they're young, but they fall in that millennial category. Yeah. I just missed it. Yeah. And so because we understand that, we understand by putting this information out there that those people who are doing the research will watch videos. And that's why we did the podcast, because we can establish ourselves as an authority with purpose and storytelling. Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. So you mentioned AI there, which a lot of people think is going to heavily affect everything. We're already seeing it kind of coming in all over the place. How do you see kind of trends changing over the next 5, even 10 years? Can you look that far ahead? How do you see things kind of changing in this kind of industry?
Yeah, well, I think certainly building stuff is changing. I mean, if you build enough stuff with code and AI is in code, then eventually AI can write the code for you because there's enough track record of stuff that it's done before to then predict what needs to come afterwards. So you could build things quicker, for example. I mean, I've openly said here that the years of devs doing dev work only is changing. You will get a top tier devs that are building the amazingly cool stuff.
Sure.
But I don't think a dev, if you're an average dev, I think you'll be better using your skills for no-code tools and stuff like that, where AI can help predict and build things while you're doing it.
Sure.
Which is good in a way because it's now putting the client at the heart of the product rather than the tech at the heart of the product, which is often the case.
Yeah.
It's the tech's driving the innovation when in fact then the end user should be driving the innovation. You can predict what people want in the future, but like I touched on before, is that I don't need my team coding 17 different navigations.
Yeah.
There's a suite of navigations. Pick the one that works because the end user just wants to find what they want to find.
Sure.
And there might be slight tweaks over time, but a navigation is a navigation on a website, for example.
Yeah.
So I think with AI, I think it will help with research. I don't think it will completely eradicate the tools that we have out there. I think it can enhance.
Yeah.
But it's very clear to say that AI is a tool, just like a computer is a tool.
Sure.
It's a tool in a toolkit, and we just need to know where it fits and how to make it work. We often get insecure with these new tools coming. I think it's going to change everything.
Yeah.
Look at the pandemic.
Yeah.
When the pandemic came on, everyone thought, oh, that's it. We are never going to work in an office ever again.
Yeah.
We're all going to work from home forever. And then 2 years in, it's like, I don't want to work from home forever.
Everybody wants to be back amongst people. And,
But the thing is, it's gone one way, and then it's come back the other way. And now what you've ended up with is a hybrid.
Yeah.
So you end up with large companies with 50 staff saying, well, we've got a room with 10 desks, and you can and rota people in so they can come in and see their mates and connect with or meet somewhere else. So I think sometimes the dial goes one way and then comes back the other way, and then we kind of find out what works. And certainly with the office culture, I don't think we'll ever go back to 9 to 5 every single day. I think that's going to change. And we're experiencing it. Just people love working with one another on certain projects, but they don't feel that they have to be in the office every single day.
It helps creativity as well, doesn't it? You kind of bounce off each other.
There are certain tasks where being face-to-face, human to human, absolutely work.
Yeah.
I mean, brainstorming on Zoom was tough.
It's
really tough.
It's brain frying.
Yeah.
Interesting. So, I guess AI as an artist, kind of how I look at it, it's hard sometimes not to feel slightly threatened by it, or there is a slight moral dilemma I've found in the marketplace, because you can get kind of AI now which can generate any concept imagery you can think of.
Yeah.
And to a really good level. Very good level. And some of it is absolutely amazing when you look at it. And if you can get your kind of words right, what you input, your kind of
parameters,
your parameters, that's it. You can come up with the most amazing kind of conceptual work. However, the moral dilemma comes is that it's only using artists' work.
Yeah.
So it's using artists who've created the work and mixing it up to make something new. Yeah. So it couldn't actually do its job without other artists.
Absolutely, because it's
creating.
Learns. Yeah, it's a learning thing.
And the problem that the artists have is that they get nothing from it. They get no intellectual rights. They get nothing from and so there is a kind of big debate going on, and a lot of the platforms that I'm part of, there's kind of almost artists going on strike and not exhibiting their work on that platform anymore because they feel so threatened, and they feel I would say intellectual theft almost. So I'm not sure where I stand, because I love to embrace new tools, and like you said,
you're sat in a position now where you're talking about AI having used Photoshop.
Yeah.
20 years ago when Photoshop come out, it was the end of art.
Yeah.
You know, and the photographer's like, oh, we can never take another photo because you just do it in Photoshop. You know, and so basically what you ended up with is everyone like threatened about this tool called Photoshop. We're now 20 years on. Every photographer uses Photoshop.
Yeah.
Every artist now uses Photoshop. And I think it's knowing or giving it enough time to work out where that tool fits. It show my age now, but you know, artworks used to be pasted up, like headlines on newspapers, and then Apple Macs come along, using the same principle, but I did it digitally, you know, and then I could move in half the time or whatever, and it's like
have to set all your type.
That's it. Now, what's going to happen? It's the end of, no. We learned that we never forgot the principles, and in fact, graphic designers that didn't know that backstory were pretty rubbish. You know, so there were reasons at college and things like that. You were taught things about hot type and text and fonts and stuff like that. So, and what leading is, you know, people don't know what leading is, but it actually was lead, spacing, lines, because it was real lead, you know. And I think for me, it's just when the new technology comes out, we're excited by it and then we're threatened by it. And then somehow we put up with it enough and then digest. Now, we don't know because we're not there yet, so we don't know where it's going to go in the next 5 years. Yeah, but I still think, like with AI and writing, you know, we was talking to Rin Hamburg the other day about it, and it's like I don't think it will ever replace the original writer with heart and soul and their unique experience and their journey. You know, that's there. You know, you could kind of guess, but I think I'd much rather hear Rin's story than an AI bot writing a story of what could have happened to Rin and going, yeah, that's fine. No, I'd want to hear it in Rin's own words. Interesting enough, our team have been putting on the blog written by humans now, you know, and I think there is also legislation or ideas of legislation coming in where it automatically will flag if it's written by a bot or not. And there are websites that can find that content out there. Well, the schools have had to step up, right?
Of course.
Because, you know, it's like, please write my dissertation about, oh, there it is, done. I did it in 5 minutes and back on the games machine. You're not learning. I mean, that's the thing, is that if you get rid of all these principles, we don't learn. So we got Google Maps. Many of us rely on Google Maps. But if your phone's flat, what, you lost? Have you forgotten how to read a sign? You know, ultimately, there's still principles that I think as a human you need to learn. That it's not just like a robot telling it what to do. Oh, show me how to get to Bristol from Cardiff. Well, actually, turn your phone off and try and get there and read some signage. Do you know what I mean? That is good for you.
So do you think, because you're very entrepreneurial, you're starting 12 businesses, do you think the kind of branding and marketing will always be at the heart of kind of what you kind of do and you know where you're at?
I think you always need marketing, and like you always need sales. I think sales and marketing work hand in hand. Marketing is essentially telling stories and telling them really well, and adding and aiding credibility to make it, you know, give you enough evidence that says this is the right place to spend my money to be able to get where I need to get to. So I think you're always going to need that. Just like we always need people to close, you know, and deal with the objections. And marketing done well, there's going to be less objections to do it. So, you know, like e-commerce, you think, oh, that's the end of sales. No, well, it's not. You know, it's just another way that people buy stuff. You know, as much as you say, well, the e-commerce world is amazing, but think about how many returns there are from buying clothes online. Now, there is a bit of a trend where people go into the store, try the clothes on, take them off, then go back online and order them, which is quite a convoluted way of doing it. But again, I think retail needs to maybe reinvent itself a little bit in terms of, you know, minimize the time so you go once and you can make sure the stuff fits and find it quicker and see what it looks like. I mean, I've seen some things where you've got a mirror and they put the clothes on and then they put you in different scenarios, you know, so that's quite cool. But the reality is e-commerce, although it's really helped and it was used through COVID, clothes buying, you really want to try it on. And you can do a VR and you can put a thing on and you can see what you look like, but you still want to feel it, don't you? You still want to see how it sits. And we know what it's like. You look at look at the image of someone, you buy it and you put it on, you're like, oh my gosh, I look terrible.
Oh dear Lord. Yeah.
Look nothing like that person.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's the same with marketing and stuff like that. At the end of the day, it's about storytelling. A strong brand is strong storytelling, and I think you always need it. I don't think for me, as much as we're always telling stories ourselves. So when we're meeting new people and we're talking to strangers, we're marketing ourselves in a way.
Of course,
that people buy into us. So
yeah,
I mean, it's a human skill. I don't think we'll ever lose.
Do you find it frustrating sometimes? I know that sometimes we find as a company people don't value what marketing brings and branding brings to the company. They don't actually have an idea and a concept of actually how much it can revolutionize your company and your business. How do you help people like that see?
Yeah, because it goes back to people focus on the method and not on the message. And you can build a website and you can stick stuff on there and you might make a few sales.
Yeah.
But you're going to work harder to get those sales without marketing.
Sure. And we even said when there's an economic downturn, sometimes the first thing that goes is the marketing budget. And it should be the opposite, really, shouldn't it?
Yeah, because everyone thinks they can do it themselves. And I think, it's not until you meet people that understand marketing and understand storytelling and things like that you begin to realize, actually, no, I can't do it myself. We were talking to an architect, weren't we? In terms of building, and the same thing is like you can go and hire a builder and do it yourself, but if you have an architect, they can realize the vision and manage the entire project and deal with the builders. Yeah. And so, you might save in the short term in terms of money, but that builder might be adding another 10, 15 grand on. If there was an architect involved, would have flagged it and said no. So you spend 4 grand with an architect who actually saves you 25 grand long term.
Sure, yeah.
And it's a bit like marketing. We can save you money, not as well as make you money. So if you don't have marketing, you're going to have to market yourself. Yeah. And if you're not particularly confident in that, it's going to cost you sales. And that's why you employ.
And time.
And time, exactly. And you're not doing what you're doing. You're not doing what you're great at. And I think that's often what happens when we go to try and save money. Yes, we need to be intelligent in how we spend, but when we try, if we're trained as a pet, a vet, sorry. If you're trained as a pet, if you're trained as a vet, and now you're doing your own marketing, you're now stealing that time away from you being a vet. Yes. So you're not working on as many pets and animals to heal them. You're now doing your own marketing badly, which is now losing you revenue because, or you're not doing such a great job with those pets because they end up dying, which then hinders up your reputation, which by definition, you trying to save money doing your own marketing is actually killing your own reputation.
Yeah, it's a good point.
So
kind of like teachers being overworked with bureaucracy, isn't it? And policemen and things are not actually doing what they...
And that's a sign of a good business, is where you can focus on what you're supposed to be doing. Yeah. And you're free to do that because other people are doing the things that you're not so good at. Yeah. And it's just being honest and being self-aware to say, I'm rubbish at this, but I know this person's better at me than that. And being secure enough to say, I know I'm really good at this. This is the space I need to play in to allow someone else to play in that space. Yeah. And it's not that we compete with one another. We complete one another by finding each other's strengths and working together. And I think, that's why you end up with a situation where if you're not so great at marketing, then find someone that is, so you can do what you're best at.
Sure. Brilliant.
That's the reality.
So where can somebody find out resources or get resources with all of this kind of information? Can they find it on Creation's website?
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that we really made a concerted effort to do is provide people with as many resources as possible. Yeah. Storytelling at its heart is knowing your purpose. Mm-hmm. So we have everything from a purpose questionnaire on the Creation website.
And does somebody go on and they can fill that in straight away?
Yeah. So you can just log online to creation.co.uk, CREAION. Yeah. It's called the Purpose Questionnaire. I think it's under the first tab.
And that's free, isn't it? That's
free of charge. Yeah. And it will ask you questions of where you are in your purpose journey. Yeah. At the end of that, you'll get a score, and it will give you almost like a report card back to say this is where you are on the journey, and have a discovery call with us if you feel appropriate. So that's that one. There's my book, The Crisis Catalyst. So the crisis
behind you there.
It's behind me there. Yeah. So the Crisis Catalyst is got a lot of marketing stuff in there. Yeah. Which is not what you would find in a traditional marketing book. It's got a lot of life story and those sorts of things. And really, again, the power of my story being told and how to deal with things. So if my audience is entrepreneurs, for example, that book shows you I understand what it is to be an entrepreneur myself.
Sure. Okay.
And so there's the empathy. They go, oh, you get what it's like. Yeah, I 100% do. And so therefore now there's that element of trust. And obviously the podcast, the businesses that we've had in various different sectors is not necessarily about us selling our services, but it's just to show that there's some amazing people with some amazing insights. If you listen for 30 minutes, 40 minutes of what they've got to say, would really help you as a business go further forward.
Great. Well, Darrell, thanks so much.
Yeah.
Thanks for all the insights. Brilliant. Love to hear it. And guys, thanks for joining us. We'll see you soon.
Thank you. Hey everybody, thank you for tuning into the Purpose People podcast. Just to remind you, you can like and subscribe to us on YouTube and on Apple, Spotify and Google podcast platforms. You can review us and you can follow us. That really helps us get our message out there that life is better lived on purpose. We trust that you're enjoying the Purpose People podcast, but if you'd like to find out more about putting purpose at the heart of your business, you can contact us today, book a discovery call, and we can discuss how we can help you live a life on purpose.